Welcome to Misinformation with Rochelle Rochelle. Bear with me while I get this set here. Okay. So today we're going to talk about my take on the Lindsay Clancy trial. So we have Corvette Dawson and Callan. Their mother, Lindsay Clancy, has admitted that she unalived her 3 children. So the question before the jury is not whether she did it or not, but if she was criminally responsible under Massachusetts law. So that is difficult enough, yet somehow the internet decided the case needed a secret accomplice, a fake suicide attempt, a husband who was supposedly in on it, medical conspiracies, and 10,000 amateur psychiatrists diagnosing a woman from clips on TikTok. So today, we're doing what the show is called misinformation. We're separating 3 things people keep blending together: evidence, argument, and rumor. So a fact is something admitted into evidence. An argument is what a lawyer asks the jury to infer. And a rumor is what social media repeats until people forget nobody proved it. Welcome to Misinformation with Rochelle Rochelle. I'm Rochelle, and today we're talking about Lindsay Clancy trial and the legal question the jury actually has to answer and the staggering amount of misinformation surrounding this case. A warning before we begin. This episode contains discussion of the deaths of 3 young children, suicide, and postpartum psychiatric illness. I will avoid unnecessary graphic detail, but if you need to step away, please do. I need to say this at the top because people have lost the plot and people have lost their minds. You can believe that Lindsay Clancy was profoundly mentally ill and still center the 3 children who died. You can believe the Commonwealth has a case and still acknowledge that postpartum psychosis is real. You can feel compassion for Patrick Clancy and still examine his testimony. None of these positions cancel the others out. I'm also not diagnosing Lindsay Clancy. Neither are you. I am not a doctor. The jury heard trained experts who evaluated her, reviewed her records, reached different conclusions. If experts who had access to the evidence disagree, nobody watching a 60-second clip on TikTok should be speaking with absolute certainty. So where the trial stands, as of today, which is Saturday, August 22nd, 2026, the defense has rested. Its final witness was Dr. Philip Resnick, and he testified that Lindsay Clancy was psychotic at the time of the unaliving of the children, and that she experienced a command hallucination and that she lacked criminal responsibility. Then the Commonwealth began its rebuttal case, and they had this psychiatrist come on, Dr. Mack. He disagreed. But I don't know if you noticed, like, during his direct, he didn't seem to, like, he was like, come on, let's get on with it with the Bobbsey twins. He acknowledged depression. He testified that he did not find evidence that Lindsay was psychotic at the critical time, and he believed that she retained the ability to understand wrongfulness and control her conduct. Closing arguments are expected next week, but he's still on cross with Reddington. So that means anything you hear today about a verdict is false. There's no verdict yet. There's no deliberation. The legal question everyone keeps getting wrong is that Massachusetts isn't asking whether Lindsay Clancy knew in the general sense that killing was illegal. The legal standard is more specific. Once lack of criminal responsibility is properly raised, the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was criminally responsible. A person's not criminally responsible if a mental disease or defect caused her to lack substantial capacity to either appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct or to conform her conduct to the law, the requirements of the law, or what she believed was right or wrong with regard to the law. So listen to that word, either. The jury can find lack of criminal responsibility if the Commonwealth fails to disprove either path beyond a reasonable doubt. This also is not the same question as whether she is competent to sit in court today. Competency now and criminal responsibility in 2023, January 24th, are different legal questions about different points in time. So let's start with misinformation number 1. A lack of criminal responsibility verdict means she walks free. No. A verdict of not guilty by reason of lack of criminal responsibility does not mean she rolls out of the courthouse and goes home. Massachusetts law provides for a psychiatric evaluation and commitment proceeding, so she wouldn't just automatically be released. Continued confinement would depend on the legal standards governing mental illness and dangerousness with court review. So you can debate whether that system is adequate. You cannot accurately say the jury is choosing between prison and immediate freedom, because that's simply not the law. Misinformation number 2, postpartum psychosis is just severe depression. No. They are not interchangeable. They are not the same thing. The psychosis can involve hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking, mania, a profound break from reality. It's a psychiatric emergency. It's not like, oh, she was sad, she had the baby blue. No. It's different. The defense evidence was not merely that Lindsay was sad, anxious, overwhelmed, even though she was. Her family described a significant decline. Evidence shows that she sought extensive treatment. She expressed suicidal ideations. She reported thoughts of harming the children. And the defense experts relied on a much larger clinical picture. But the Commonwealth's response is not that the postpartum psychosis is imaginary at the moment of the killings, or that they're just saying that it didn't exist at the moment of the killings. They're saying that Lindsay was psychotic at the moment of the It's positions that the evidence does not establish that she was psychotic at the moment of the killings, or that any illness destroyed the capacities required for criminal responsibility. That distinction matters. All right. Misinformation number 3. If she appeared normal that day, she could not have been psychotic. That's one of the biggest oversimplifications in this case. The Commonwealth points to purposeful behavior. She took the child on a medical appointment. She communicated normally. She asked Patrick to pick up food for dinner. She used exercise bands. She later told him where the children were. Those facts are in evidence. And the prosecution is entitled to argue that they show planning, awareness, and control. They're not a scientific rule that automatically excludes psychosis. Dr. Resnick, now he testified that a person can appear organized and still experience a psychotic episode, including the command hallucination during the critical period. The honest version is this: her organized conduct is important evidence. Experts disagree about what it proves. Now let's move on to misinformation number 4. Takeout airing proves the entire case. Well, the takeout order has become like a big part of all these TikTok conspiracies. People analyze every minute as if a burrito receipt can diagnose the criminal responsibility. The prosecution argues Lindsay deliberately created a window of time by sending Patrick out for food and medication. The defense argues ordinary errands do not resolve whether a psychotic command emerged or controlled her actions after he left. The errand is a fact. The premeditated separation is the Commonwealth's inference. A sudden psychotic break is the defense's inference. The jury decides which inferences the evidence supports and whether the Commonwealth met its burden. Misinformation number 5, the door. The door was locked. That's evidence Patrick was involved. So this is where online speculation has really become reckless. I'm sure you guys have seen the Bratz dolls diorama reenactment. I mean, it's just not proof that Patrick participated or helped cover something up. The trial has included conflicting recollections and detailed questioning about the doors and whether Lindsay denied locking one. That may affect credibility. It is not proof that Patrick killed his children, helped Lindsay, or staged the scene. Law enforcement treated Patrick as a witness, and the prosecution called him to testify. No evidence admitted at trial has established him as an accomplice. His DNA was on the exercise band, everyone says, but he testified that he removed the bands from the kids. So that gives an obvious innocent explanation for contact with the item, and evidence must be interpreted in context. If you want to question inconsistencies, question them. But if you're accusing a grieving father of murdering his children, you need evidence. TikTok vibes are not. Let's be real. And then, what are we on? Number 6? Misinformation number 6. Her internet searches proves she was planning a defense. They say she searched subjects including depression, suicidal thinking, hallucinations, psychosis before killings, and then the prosecution argues these searches show knowledge and awareness. And the defense can argue that, they just show she was sick and she's trying to understand what the heck was happening inside her head. But a search term doesn't tell us by itself why the person searched it. It becomes meaningful, in my only when considered alongside timing, medical records, the messages, the testimony, and conduct. There was also testimony about the suicide-related browsing on Patrick's computer or tablet, whatever it was, and uncertainty over who made or followed certain searches. So don't turn disputed evidence attribution into a settled fact. The lawyers explored it, the jury heard it, the internet did not magically resolve it, and they're never going to, because they're constantly going to be arguing on. Misinformation number 7. Patrick's going to be called to the stand again because he's number 1 on Reddington's witness list. Y'all were wrong. I had an army come after me on TikTok because I was like, he's not being called again. He already testified. It's not how that happens. And he obviously wasn't called. So let's just stop. Stop this. Can y'all just stop? We really it's just gonna be my classes leave a mark made. It's really gonna be a showdown of experts. This case is gonna come down to how the jury evaluates 2 very different expert narratives. Dr. Resnick, called by Reddington, unfortunately, he had to be over Zoom, and I hope, I hope that they use the fact that the Zoom connection was so terrible towards her medical care and saying how ineffective Zoom meetings are, okay? But anyway, Dr. Resnick had extensive psychiatry experience and worked on major cases involving the maternal postpartum psychosis, including Andrea Yates. He testified that Lindsay had postpartum psychosis, experienced command hallucinations. He said she had delusions, and he believed she was morally protecting the children. And he said Testing did not indicate that she was exaggerating or manufacturing psychiatric symptoms. And then they had that Dr. Mack, the D-bag, who came in rebuttal by the Commonwealth. And he said Lindsay may have experienced major depression, but was not psychotic. He pointed to her ability to function, to plan things, to communicate, to understand, and all the things she was doing. He interpreted her reported words, including telling the child to go to God, as evidence that she understood death and wrongfulness. Credentials matter. Let's talk about that. He had a lot of things on his CV that, he wasn't licensed in these states anymore that he had on there, which was interesting. This is not fantasy football or psychiatrics. The jury does not automatically pick the expert with the most famous cases. It considers the expert's methods, the records, the facts they relied upon, how they handled the evidence, and how they performed on the stand and under cross-examination, in my opinion. I think that's how the jury's going to come back on it. I think they're just going to say, like, who was more sincere, who was more believable. Tell me what you think in the comments. The medication is another area where people are speaking far beyond the evidence. The jury heard about all the prescriptions and the medication changes during her mental health decline, and the defense says over-medication and poor coordination contributed to her deterioration, while the Commonwealth says that, she didn't even take all her pills. They were still left in the bottles. And the judge and the lawyers have also discussed jury instructions concerning involuntary intoxication, and that is the legal issue for the judge to frame based on the evidence. It's not accurate to say today that medication definitely caused this incident, and it's not accurate to say medication is legally irrelevant. But what the jury is actually going to weigh on, they're not going to decide whether she was a good mom before January 24th. That's not that they're not going to say, she was a good mom and that's our decision. But multiple witnesses, including Patrick, described her as loving and dedicated. And a person can still be a loving parent and still commit an intentional crime. They can still be a loving parent and have a mentee B, mental breakdown. Suffer a psychiatric. The jury's not deciding whether the mental health system failed her in some broad moral sense. That issue matters enormously, but the criminal verdict turns on her mental disease or defect and her capacities at the time of the acts. So the jury's not deciding whether the killings were horrific, because they were, but they're deciding criminal responsibility. And lack of criminal responsibility does not deny the deaths, excuse them casually, or diminish Cora, Dawson, and Callan's lives. And the jury must decide whether the Commonwealth proved criminal responsibility beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the job. Anything else is just noise. So here's my take. Like, here's where I land right now. Because I believe postpartum psychosis is real. I believe the evidence shows Lindsay was seriously mentally ill and asked for help over and over again. And I believe the healthcare system is broken. I believe America has failed women and women's mental health, and actually everyone's mental health. Because let's look at veterans and first responders with PTSD. Let's look at mothers and the amount of time that they're given for maternity leave. It's not enough. What are you doing, America? Wake up. And I understand why I don't understand why the Commonwealth is doing this. I don't. Because the whole thing's just a shit show. It's terrible. But what I don't know. I didn't examine the crime scene. Lindsay Clancy, never talked to her, don't know her. I don't have the right to turn a tragedy into fan fiction because the actual legal and medical questions are complicated. But we really need mental health reform. Let's go down that. I mean, we could go down that road for a long time. But I'm done with people attacking Patrick without evidence. I mean, this man came home, found the unimaginable, tried to save his children, made the 911 call. Okay, why was the internet out? I mean, I could go either way on that whole thing, too. Scrutinizing testimony is fair, but inventing involvement for engagement is cool. What are these people doing on the TikTok? So let's do some misinformation. Rapid fire. Did she kill the children? Yes. Has the jury decided if she was criminally responsible? No. Is postpartum psychosis real? Yes. Did every clinician agree she had it? No. Did defense witnesses testify that she reported a male command voice? Yes. Does a lack of criminal responsibility verdict mean immediate freedom? No. Did the trial prove Patrick was involved? No. Does organized behavior automatically rule out psychosis? Is the takeout Aaron? I don't have any questions from lawyers' evidence. I can't. So as this case moves into wrapping up next week, closing arguments, listen to what the judge's instructions are, the jury instructions, and watch for people's converting an attorney's question into fact. Watch for clips that cut off the answer. Watch for confident claims that contain no source except another TikToker. And then most of all, remember Corey, Dawson, Callan, and Z, because especially Corey, Dawson, and Callan, because their lives should not be reduced to props in a conspiracy theory or points scored in a debate about mental illness or who's calling to the stand or whatever have you. You can hold grief and accountability and compassion and uncertainty all at the same time. That is harder than choosing a team. And it's also more honest. This has been Misinformation with Rochelle Rochelle. If you have a claim about this case that you would like to fact check, send it to me with the original source, not a screenshot of somebody repeating it. Follow the show for the verdict episode. If there is one, maybe I'll make one. We will see. Because when the verdict comes down, we are reading what the jury actually found before we let the internet tell us what it means. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, call or text 988 in the United States. Postpartum psychosis is an emergency. Seek immediate medical help or call 911 if there's a risk of harm. And that is all for me today. Rochelle Rochelle is out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks for listening.